Greeting everyone. Following is the interpretation or orally translate of the today Q&A into English. Question number 1. Dear Bante, I had a dream that I still have feelings for someone who is not my husband. Shockingly, I realized that my feelings to the ones I hate or to the ones I love are not important. What is important are the attachment and the anger within myself. Even if these people are not part of my life anymore, would I have peace if I still have these feelings? I am slowly seeing this self. Please explain. Thank you, Bante. The comments from the teacher are, this is your experience. Even with a dream, you are still aware of it. You are aware of yourself and your feelings. Normally, we misunderstand about uh, the, the word self and the word soul. As long as we think that there is a self, there is rebirth. Therefore, try to cultivate wholesome karma by having a wholesome or by keeping the morality pure and have a wholesome thought. When there is no wisdom, we will make unwholesome karma. We should emphasize on the law of nature, the law of karma. We should not emphasize on the self. When we do good things, we will reap good benefits. It is good that you are aware of yourself. And the more that you are aware of yourself, then the more you are skillful and the more you will have more mindfulness. You will have more and more mindfulness. The more awareness that you have, then the less attachment to the self. You will realize that objects are objects. Objects are not important. What is important is that you are aware of it. You should be aware of your mind. You should be aware of your intention before any actions in your daily life. The more that you are aware of yourself, the more wholesome your mind, your speech, and your physical actions will be wholesome. The more wholesome, the more happiness you will reap in the future. And when your mind is pure with more awareness, concentration will increase, understanding will increase. When there is understanding, there is less attachment, there is less suffering, and that is more important. So, the advice for you is to increase more and more awareness. Question number 2. Dear Bante, I wish you and the Sangha peace and good health. I have some questions in regard to the statement of Osho. Osho said that the self is like a ripe fruit on a tree. If there is no self, then there is nothing to get rid of, and one needs to develop the self so it will become bigger self. The self will become a bigger self. Then this bigger self will automatically drop off just like a ripe fruit. The self will automatically disappear when it understands that there is no self to reach. The road to dropping off the self has to go through the development to a bigger self. I think this practice is that path. Is it true that when the self develops to the max, then one would automatically let go? And this process changes to equanimity. Would you please explain? Thank you, Bante. The comments from the Venerable Khippapanno are, this is Osho teaching. This is not the Buddha's teaching. When Venerable Osho said that the self is like a ripe fruit on a tree, then the Venerable Khippapanno said that one should not compare, one should not give that kind of example, because a fruit on a tree is a material thing. It does not have a mind. The, uh, the mind of a human being, it has the ability to think. So it is different. The object of a fruit cannot be compared to a mind. If you want to compare, then you can compare that the fruit is impermanent. It is young, it is ripening, then finally it falls down. So it arises, then it disappears. And same with the mind. The mind arises, then the mind disappears. If you want to compare the impermanence, you can compare that way. But you cannot compare a material thing with a mind. It is totally different. In Buddhism, there is no self. The idea of a self is a wrong understanding, a wrong thinking. People misunderstand about the self. There is no self in Buddhism. In Buddhism, there is only mind and body in this being. When the Buddha explained, he said that there are only mind and body. But when someone cannot understand about mind and body, then the Buddha went further to explain. The mind and body can be explained as 5 groups or 5 aggregates. That is the group of the material things or the group of the body. And then the mind can be divided into 4 smaller groups, 4 smaller aggregates. And that 4 smaller groups are the feeling, the perception, the mental formation, and the consciousness. So as you can see that this, what we call a human being, is composed of many things. It is composed of this physical aspect. It is composed the physical aspect, the feelings, the perceptions, the mentals, and the consciousness. And these aspects, these groups, they change constantly. When there are enough conditions, they arise. And when the conditions go away, they will disappear. So actually, there is nothing that is called a self. And in the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha taught us to develop the morality, the concentration, and wisdom. When the wisdom is developed, one will realize that there is no self and there is no no one control this whole process of arising and passing away of all these different groups. And in order to understand that, there is no other way except through the practice of the insight meditation. In the Buddha's teaching, there is no self at all. As long as a person thinks that there is a self, that is a wrong thinking. And that wrong thinking leads a person to the cycle of rebirth. When a person is enlightened, then that person gets rid of the notion, the wrong idea of a self. When the Buddha was alive, he gave the Dhamma talk to the Venerable Khandanya. And in the Anattalakkhana Sutta, they talk about no self. And in that talk, the Buddha asked the Venerable Khandanya that, is this a physical uh, groups? Are they permanent or not? The Venerable say, no, it is not permanent. Is this feelings permanent or not? The Venerable Khandanya replied, no, Bhante, it is not permanent. Is this perception permanent? The answer is no. Is this a mental formation permanent? The answer is no. Is this consciousness permanent? Excuse me. Is this consciousness permanent? Then the Venerable Khandanya answered, no, Bhante. If they are not permanent, is that is that um, is that happiness or not? The Venerable Khandanya say, no, it is not happiness. Then the Buddha asked, are these 5 groups? Can we control them? Then the Venerable Khandanya say, no, we cannot control them at all. And after the Dhamma talk, the Venerable Khandanya became an Arahant. So the idea, the notion of the self, it is not in Buddhism. The idea of a self is a wrong thinking, is a wrong understanding. And an enlightened person get rid of this idea. In this mind and body, there are only the phenomena of the mind and the body. When a person meditates, that person will experience for himself or herself that all of the phenomena inside the mind and the body are impermanent, and the person, the practitioner, is oppressed by this constant change, and there is no one who controls this phenomena at all. Therefore, in Buddhism, there is no self. So, we should not think that there is a self, and we should not develop this notion of self at all. And because we think incorrectly, then we are in the cycle of rebirth. In Buddhism, we are traveling in the cycle of the rebirth because of the things that tie us in the samsara. Those things that bind us to the samsara, to the cycle of rebirth, is the idea of the self, doubt, wrong practice, attachment, anger, delusion, wandering mind, conceit. If a person has a strong ego, then he would suffer more. And if a person who does not have the conceit, then there will be less suffering for him. So bottom line is the idea of the self is like a ripe fruit on a tree. That is the teaching of the Venerable Osho. That is not the Buddha's teaching. And that is how the Venerable Khippapanno understand about the Buddha teaching. Question number 3. Dear Bhante, I have been practicing for 10 years, and only in the last 2 years that I understand deeper about the Dharma and be able to practice in daily life, thanks to some obstacles. The practice is deeper after I read the books, Female Masters and The Daughter of the Buddha. Now I am inclined to the life of renunciation. I would like to pay respect to you, the Venerable, and ask you about a suitable place to ordain. I called the number on the website and was told that there is the Q&A session. Thank you for your advice. The comments from the teacher are, I don't know where you are living right now. If you are living in the US, you can come to the Mahasatipatthana Center in Florida to ordain. If you are living in Vietnam, then you can find a suitable place to ordain. Question number 4. Dear Bhante, in the past, I used to have a strong desire to renounce the world, but now it has changed. I don't put much emphasis on being ordained. Rather, I put emphasis on being liberated and being virtuous in any circumstances. I do not think about renouncing anymore. Does it mean I give up on the idea of renunciation and my determination is lacking off? Thank you, Bhante, for your advice. The comments from the teacher are, as long as you have the incline to be liberated, that is good. And the practice that lead to liberation is morality, concentration, and wisdom. That is the path to liberation. It is not important whether you you are renouncing the world and ordain, or you are a lay person. Because you can be enlightened as a lay person. So the appearance of a lay person or a monk or a nun is not important. What is important is the practice. As long as you are walking on the path that has uh, morality, concentration, and developing wisdom, then it is guaranteed you will be liberated. If you are a monk or a nun, then you have to keep more precepts. So it is more difficult. As a layperson, you just need to keep 5 precepts. As long as you are liberated, then the quality of liberation is the same. Whether you are a sotapanna as a layperson or as a monk or as a nun, that quality is the same. The only difference is the precepts. It is harder to be a monk or a nun. But the the appearance of an ordained person is more noble, and it gives a stronger impression on someone who sees it. The Venerable gives the example when the prince Siddhartha, when he went around outside of the city gate, he saw the ascetic. That means that is the image of an ordained person. And when the prince Siddhartha saw that image, the prince had a very good impression, and the Bodhisattva decided to be ordained um, right away, to renounce the world right away. So the image of an ordained person uh, is noble, and it gives a stronger impression. It is up to you uh, whether you want to renounce the world or you want to be as a layperson. It is more important that you are practicing on the path that cultivate morality, concentration, and wisdom. That is more important. Being renouncing the world is not easy. It is very difficult. Uh, you can ordain temporarily to cultivate the wholesome uh, karma. So in the future, you might be enlightened as a monk or a nun. Question number 5. Dear Bante, I normally work 8 hours a day. When I get home, I take care of the family. By the time I'm free and want to meditate, then I am mentally and physically tired. And because of that, I become lazy and I procrastinate. Pro- Procrastinate. Yes. As soon as I lie down, I fall asleep. If I sit and meditate, I fall asleep and I don't see any dharma. In this case, should I wait until the body and mind are well rested, then I practice? Or should I just try to sit only for a few minutes? Thank you, Bante, for your advice. The comments from the teacher are, It seems like this yogi lives in the United States. Sounds like you are very busy. You work hard during the day, and by the time you get home, you have to do more housework. So, if you want to rest well and then you meditate, that is also okay. And if you only want to sit for a few minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, it is also okay. It is up to you. And the Venerable Khippapanno went further. He said that there are many meditation teachers, such as the Mahasi Sayadaw, Lady Sayadaw, Webu Sayadaw. The teaching of Lady Sayadaw passed down to Webu Sayadaw, passed down to uh, Ubakin, and passed down to Venerable Goenka. Venerable Khippapanno had the opportunity to meet Sri Umin Sayadaw, to meet the Tangpulu Sayadaw. Venerable Khippapanno met the Tangpulu Sayadaw in India at the Bodh Gaya a long, long time ago. At that time, the Tangpulu Sayadaw gave a Dharma talk on Vijja and Avijja. Vijja is non-delusion or wisdom. Avijja is delusion. So the talk is about wisdom and delusion. Normally, as a human being, we have a body and a mind. And physically, there are 4 postures: sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. So during the day, we must be in one of the 4 postures. Standing, walking, sitting, and lying. So during the day, we must be in one of those 4 postures. So whichever posture we are in, as long as we are aware of it, then there is understanding, there is wisdom in there. When we are aware of the posture, uh, we can make a mental note such as standing, standing, or walking, walking, or sitting, sitting, or lying down, lying down. Whatever posture we are in the day, as long as we are aware of it, there is understanding, there is wisdom. And we have the senses, we have the eyes, we can see. When we see, we just aware of seeing, seeing, seeing. So what we see are shapes and color. And we have ears. With the ears, we can hear. With the hearing, then we make a mental note of hearing, hearing, hearing. With the body, we can aware of touching. Whatever there are touching in the body, we can aware of it. So as long as we are aware, then there is understanding, there is wisdom. When there is no awareness, then there is delusion. At that moment, delusion is present. So the Tangpulu Sayadaw taught that as soon as we wake up in the morning, uh, we just spend 5 minutes only. When we spend 5 minutes to sit, we are aware of sitting, touching. With the sitting, just aware of the whole body sitting and aware of the touching at the buttocks, or the hands are touching. It is up to you. As long as there is awareness, that is fine. You are doing it correctly. So, only 5 minutes. Uh, Take out 5 minutes in the morning, aware of sitting, touching, sitting, touching. And then from the place, from your house to work, you are driving, then you can aware of seeing, hearing, seeing, hearing. When you drive, you have to see things, and then you also hear the sounds of the car. So aware of it. Seeing, seeing, hearing, hearing, seeing, hearing, seeing, hearing. At lunchtime, you eat. After you eat, you can just sit and rest for 5 minutes. And when you sit and rest, just aware of seeing, hearing, sitting, touching, seeing, hearing, sitting, touching. Just aware of that for 5 minutes. As long as there is awareness, then you are doing it correctly, and there is understanding, there is wisdom in you. So at first, you can start with 5 minutes. That's it. For the Venerable Khippapanno, he applies this when he goes on a trip at the airport. When he is inside the airport, he is aware of walking. And then when he sits on the airplane, he awares of sitting, seeing, hearing, touching, etc. And when you practice this, it is amazingly how good it will help with your awareness. You won't feel tired at all. It is very, very good. And this technique is very good for someone who lives in a society that is super busy. Normally, we always feed this body. We eat, we feed this body, but we always forget to feed the mind. So try to feed the mind. As long as there is awareness, there is understanding, there is liberation. If there is no awareness, it is death. And the Venerable mentioned that the Sayadaw Khippapanno, he practices the Dhutanga practice. The Venerable Khippapanno does not lie down at all. He only sits about 3+ years. And the Venerable Khippapanno tried that for 3 days. It is very, very difficult. It is very difficult on the body. It's painful on the body. Therefore, many people believe that Sayadaw Khippapanno is a bodhisattva. And there are some other group believe that the Sayadaw Khippapanno is an arahant. But Venerable Khippapanno does not know either way. The only thing that the Venerable Khippapanno knows is that Venerable Tangpulu practices the Lutanga, and it is very difficult. Venerable Khippapanno has a small book that mention about the technique of the Venerable Tangpulu. He will try to find someone who can translate it and will print it out. So the advice for the yogi who is super busy is to try 5 minutes at a time. 5 minutes in the morning, uh, just aware of sitting, touching. And then 5 minutes from your house to the workplace, aware of seeing, hearing. And after lunch, aware of uh, seeing, hearing, sitting, touching. Just do it only for 5 minutes. The important thing is awareness. Just aware of 5 minutes. That is enough. As long as there are a few minutes of awareness here and there, it is good enough. If you do that, then you will have about 15-20 minutes of awareness during the day. And that is good for someone who is super busy. So that is the end of the today Q&A session. The Venerable Khippapanno explained according to his understanding. If the yogis, the practitioners have any more questions, you can email and the Venerable will try his best to explain. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the power of the Triple Gem protect you and may you progress well on this path. May you be liberated in a near future. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.